Hi, everyone. I thought I should follow up. Earlier, I was trying to, during our meeting, export some geometry to Revit, and I was not able to open it successfully in Revit, but I closed out of Revit. I did it again, and I was able to get to this point. Just to recap, what I did, and I think it could be very useful for everybody, is I used Autodesk's Forma to generate the site geometry and mapping that I wanted out of data. This is actually for the Winter Park site. I had done exactly the same thing for the Phoenix site, and I did it for the LA site, and I can show you what that looks like. So that one is Winter Park, Florida. This is the one that I did during our all section meeting for LA, and I was able to get a pretty significant amount of data, all the buildings and massing. And these are things that you can actually manipulate and alter and change. The road data looks actually really accurate. It has topography where it needs it. This is a fairly flat site, so there's just not a ton. And I also have an aerial photograph under here that helps me model additional elements that I might need. And I've made this point before that especially as it relates to roads and sidewalks and other elements that you're going to have to finesse yourself. That's not going to be given to you automatically by the software, but this does a really good job of getting you, I would say 90% there. And the image you can turn on and off. The way that I went about this is I added an extension to Forma. Forma is available from Autodesk. You can just go where you download your Autodesk software, look for Forma and access it there. And then there's a beta version of a Revit add-in and a full version of a Rhinoceros add-in. And these two are the ones that I would say you would need to. So if you're working in Rhino, just download this, make sure that you have it. And if you're working in Revit, download this. And then once you go into Revit, I'm going to go back to the geometry that I generated for Florida, which is this one. So this is the Florida site. Forma navigates a lot like Revit. So right now I am right clicking and just kind of hovering around. The site is this one right here, adjacent to the Martin Luther King Jr. Park. And this is the Winter Park Library. The heights of the building in Florida are fairly low, so this looks accurate, but I would give it another pass if you're on this site to determine if these heights are all correct. So how I would go about that would be to just simply get on Google Maps or Google Earth, and then from the car view or driving view, just kind of review, make sure that the buildings have the correct heights. I know for a fact these buildings are 2 stories, and that's about what they look like. But you can confirm that and just verify it. So once you have this, and I showed earlier in the other video what I did to get information onto it. I gathered as much of the data as I could. And so right now, these components were ordered to be a part of this map. Roads, satellite imagery, a base map, a vegetation map. And you know, I haven't seen a ton of the trees showed up, but some of them did. In the Phoenix site, it actually did it pretty well. And then here, this is the building heights actually, and this one is the terrain. This one is the default, so that's already in there. And then the other thing that happens that comes with is that you get all the roads, so those are kind of already in here, but you can add more detail or subtract detail. So this is pretty cool. This is my map. And now that I have it like this, I made a point to go as far out as I could. So this is almost, I think, a mile, square mile of the city. But what I did was I wanted to catch a little bit of water here and a little bit of water here. And then this, mostly because I thought that would graphically be a better thing. And I have the distance. And so from my site, I could start to kind of generate just 5 minute, 10 minute, and maybe 15, 20-minute walks from it, just to make sure that that's relevant context. So that's what happened on Forma. Forma does not require a download. Forma is a web-based application. So it's kind of convenient because everything lives on the cloud. I can go back here, and since yesterday, I've been experimenting with different things. So I have already like 4 different proposals here. But the other advantage is that you can actually do a level of analysis. You can analyze solar exposure, heat, microclimate, wind, daylighting, and very many other things in Forma. So I think it's actually a very good tool to use. Somebody had asked me about Mapbox. So I'm going to maybe go back to that right here. You can see it here. The data, some of the data that is here is actually coming from Mapbox. It's one of the things that you can add in when you make a new project. So the simple thing to do is you go make a new project, you enter the address of the site that you are using, and it will take you there, and then it will ask you for an extents. So the box has a measurement and an extents, and you can dimension in Forma. This is not, you don't have to guess, and distances is actually given to you. So I think it's a very powerful platform. Okay, so once I did that, I was able to export it, and maybe I should just show it again for clarity. So if you're here and you want to take this to a different, well, to Revit, in this case, it was Revit, you go here where I renamed my proposal Winter Park, Florida, and I click on these 3 dots here on the right-hand side, and I went Revit, and I sent to Revit Beta. I had already downloaded my Revit add-in, so I had that already loaded, and I have that. So then I went into my Revit 2025, and I created a new project. So this is my new project, and all I have done so far was essentially go here under the massing and site, where my Forma add-in is showing up, massing and site, and I loaded my proposal. So when I went in here, I was able to load this content, this proposal that I generated using Forma. And you can see it has the water there, the park, and the other end of the water is actually, it's pretty flat, and it's a little bit hard for me to control it, but it's in here. So the first thing that you may need to do is go into the Modify tab and select the topo, which is that edge right there. That's your topography. Once you've selected your topo, you can go here and put in a section box so that now you have the ability to cut this and manipulate it, open it up, and do other things. I don't know if you can see that, but it has put my section box in here. So it's like, this is the section box. So the section box now can let me cut through that geometry and do other things. So one thing is it's fairly thin, meaning that the topography does not have a lot of depth. I may want it to have more depth. It's a topo solid, and currently it's at the default thickness of 1 foot 1/51/256 of an inch. Just an odd dimension, but this is coming directly from the way it was generated. So I click there, I go to edit type, and I can now edit my topo solid and give it greater thickness. What I did for the Phoenix one was I set this structure part to 20 feet, and I left the finish at the same thickness. 20 feet seems plenty. plenty good. You can go to 40 if you want a thicker, chunkier base to your site. And if you have, the Phoenix site has an underground tunnel, right? Like an underpass. So it might be good to have additional site mass and information so that you can make that. So right now Revit is thinking, it's trying to bump my Topo Solid to 20 feet. We'll give it a second here. And hopefully won't crash. Please don't crash. Okay, so we'll hit apply. And okay, and you can see that immediately this got thicker. So if I was to go to the shaded view or the consistent color view, that is the finish is set to this kind of brown color. And this is the thickness of my Topo Solid. And I can now edit this topography like you edit topography in Revit, which you can use the tools up here to reshape that Topo Solid, which eventually might come in handy. But for right now, this is kind of what I need. And because I have my 3D box, I'm gonna open it up a little bit more, make sure that I'm not cutting any of my buildings. Just open it further down to make sure that all the thickness is showing up properly. And I had collapsed this side, so I have more information here. But now, you know, this is controllable. I can cut all the way into our site, which is about there. And you can kind of see that I have a Revit. So for some reason, I'm having some difficulty doing the pivot with my mouse. So I'm using the wheel, which is fine. But this has given me all of that information. Again, I have the masses, they're at a height. I can now manipulate that. If you need to edit the masses because they're taller or shorter, whatever you need to do, you can always go here into the massing and site tab and play with the masses. You can also modify these elements, edit them, ungroup them, unlink them, do whatever you need. You can, of course, alter the finish to not be so brown if you want to do something. And then you can start manipulating the graphics from there. As you get closer to this assignment being something that you need to finish and get the quality in there, you may want to, you really want to pay attention to the finishes that you're using. And if this is your site, in our case, that any areas near your site, I would start to pay more attention to these roads. They're not going to be correct. They're just going to be a little bit of a mess. So those you'll need to edit, but you have the center lines, you have the locations of them, which is the most important part. So if I was to go to the very top here, top view, you basically have a really decent map you can operate on and finesse further. So let's say I want to go back to here. I want to do this. I want to extend that so that I see my whole Topo Solid. So this is a really good map. It has topo. You can see the topography around the lakes on the park. Looks actually very, very good. It looks very precise. I can change this default color to something that I may like better. I don't know what the textures are. Okay, so when you go to textures, it will actually show the underlay of that aerial photograph that I had. And really, I mean, this is as good as it gets in terms of generating the big piece of site that you need. And then we'll give you something usable that you can keep for the duration of the project and continue to work on and save it as a file. I'm going to be saving this as the Florida site for my section, and I'm going to be providing it for everybody. And I'll try to do the same for what I generated for LA and what I did for Phoenix. This one I put in a generic template, which is the right way to go. So I can simply go here, file, save it as a project. And where I have all my ASU design stuff. ARC 502, S25. These are my sites. I have one for Phoenix. I now have a folder for Winter Park. And I'm just pretty generically calling it site content. So there it is. Again, this is not the end of your modeling journey. You need to kind of fix this, correct any weird geometries that are there, but this is a really good start and way better than what we used to have to do. And so again, your site is here. You can start looking at that, putting your property line in there, and then fix what I would try and fix is sidewalks and roads, especially in the immediate vicinity of your site, which is where you're going to need them to show up for your site plan and other things. And then this can create a really good base. You can just from here start messing with the graphics. And maybe the next thing that I record has to do a little bit more with things that you might be able to do with the graphics. But I think you guys got it from here. But this is super easy, I find. And takes you from 0 to 90% of what you need to model in a fairly short amount of time. So I hope this was helpful, useful. I'm going to save this as, and you guys should try it for yourself and just get your sites into really good shape. Talk soon.